I just wanted to talk about, this is kind of a piggyback off of last week's session about executing the plays that work. And what I wanted to talk about is, what is the attraction theory to abundance listings in particular that have people seek us out instead of us hunting for business? All right. And, many of you might say, well, that's pretty obvious, but sometimes you need to hear it again, and then you start to, create a mindset that causes you to think differently. And I have a list here, so I'm not making it up as we go, but I just want to get from you guys and ladies on the call, what do clients want when they hire us? Okay, and it's not a stupid question. So and let's focus particularly on listings here, and I think it's relatable to buyers as well. So tell me one thing, like what's the one thing, and I'm looking at you, Robert, I'm not sure why you show up here, maybe because you have credibility being on almost everyone. What do your sellers look for, and what's most important to hiring you? And don't say dress.
I think it's knowledge and expertise. If you have a history of success, specifically in the area of where the listing is located, I think that's certainly something that they would look for.
Yep. Expert status was actually, this is not a setup, that was my number one piece. If somebody could tell me, what else do you think a client would look for when looking to hire one of us?
I think that they look for a specific feeling. So because sellers don't know much about selling a home, they go by a feeling. So they do research, they make sure that, whatever they look for, it makes them comfortable. If you have a bunch of signs around the neighborhood, that's part of the feeling that gives them the confidence that they can trust you based on their perception.
So I'm going to put that into the category of market share, Robert. And I think that's important. But, I would say, if you didn't have market share, we still have a really good argument and compelling story to get listings if we don't have it in their area, or maybe not individually ourselves. But that isn't one of my points. What's one thing that you think everybody would walk away from you if they think you lacked?
I would say a lack of an online presence that tells the client that you know what you're doing. Again, that feeling that makes them feel like you know what you're doing, and makes them feel like you can get the job done, and it makes them feel comfortable about doing business with you.
You're overthinking it in terms of this one. And Robert, I'm going to come back to you in a minute. Anybody else, like what's the one thing that if somebody knew that you didn't have this, that they would definitely not choose to work with you?
Probably confidence.
Confidence and lack of knowledge of the industry.
The fact that you don't listen to them. Sellers want you to listen.
Okay.
I would say it's integrity.
What was the last one?
Integrity.
Integrity and honesty. I think that's the one showstopper, right? If you wore on your forehead saying you can't trust me, but I'm the most knowledgeable, will they work with you?
No.
And if you said I have the #1 market share, but you can't trust me, are they going to work with you? Absolutely not. So I think integrity and honesty is a showstopper. And I think that maybe we don't always think about that. And how do people get their opinion or their beliefs about our integrity? Robert, you said online presence, right? People will put, if you mistreated them, sometimes they'll put that you didn't do right by them, even if that's not true, because that's the way they perceived it.
That is correct.
I know one of our agents got a complaint saying that he sells houses for too much money, and that was a 1-star rating on Zillow and Google, because he sold a $900,000 house for $1.5 million. So the reality is, if they can't trust you, they're not going to work with you. And that comes to the next skill set that I'm talking about, which is communication skills. Okay, and I think some of you alluded to that. If you can't communicate, they're not going to trust you, right? Would you agree that, trust is, a lot of that is built on the way that we carry ourselves and the way that we communicate when we meet with our clients and prospective clients,
Yes.
right?
Hey, Rob. Rob,
Yes.
you said the right word, meet with the clients. Have a one-on-one initial consultation with both buyers and sellers.
Uh-huh. I can't see who that is speaking. Who's this?
It's Angie, your new associate.
Oh, Angie, welcome to the club. Yes. If they, if you shy away from meeting people in person, I think that's a personality challenge in real estate that maybe social norms are teaching us. But I think, Angie, you would agree that desire to have that face-to-face interaction is so key.
Absolutely, 100%.
And I'm guessing that it goes both ways, because sometimes, Angie, you can read their body language, right? Not just the words they say, but how they position themselves when they say things.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So communication skills. Another trait that clients look for on both sides of the transaction is your negotiation skills. Now, do you think that we can get more abundant listings at fairer prices if they believe that we have strong negotiation skills?
Yes.
So I have a yes. So we have a few people on our wake, Angie and Robert. Thank you. And it's 2 Roberts. So when they see the negotiation skills and they know that can protect their asset, okay, that's going to draw people to you instead of chasing them away. And I hear some of these speakers on the circuit saying, hey, I'm going to tell the client that if I can't negotiate my commission, why do you want to hire me to sell your house? That's true, but I think that puts our interest ahead of their interest to some extent, and I don't think it necessarily needs to be said. I think that they will feel they'll feel the integrity, they'll feel the skill set, they'll feel your ability to do it without you having to tell them that. Market share, confidence, if I was to look at, market share or confidence, I'd probably take confidence over market share. Because if you have market share, but you don't have the confidence when you go into this opportunity, which is working with a buyer or a seller, okay, I'm going to say if there's 2 or 3 of you and, seller and co-owner, seller and spouse, if you're not confident, I say it's unanimous, which means none of you will believe in yourself if you don't. How can you convince somebody to believe in you if you lack confidence? Think about that. Market share, yeah, it's important, but I think we could all overcome market share because everybody has to start somewhere. And there are many agents that are very effective going all over the entire state, or now even in multiple states, and being effective because they have integrity, they have communication skills, they have expert status and confidence. They may not have market share, but they do have negotiation skills. And those are things I think that sometimes we overlook. And I don't know if anybody wants to be vulnerable and talk about an experience where maybe you went to list a home or work with a buyer in an area that you weren't familiar with, and share with us how you address that. Anybody?
Well, I
Throughout
mean,
to-
I had a client who was looking at houses in Mountain Lakes, and we found something that we thought was interesting. And they said to me, you know, would you be able to help us sell our house in Verona? And without stopping for a moment, I said, absolutely, I can help you there. Even though in my mind I was saying, how do I get to Verona? But the idea is that I felt confident that I could get the job done in the current market. And I spoke to you know, two other agents that I knew who did business in Verona, and they gave me some background information on it, so that I knew how to go ahead and price these people's house. And we sold it in a weekend at $47,000 more than we listed it. So
And
I
how,
think that. Go
go
ahead.
ahead, Rob, I'm sorry.
No, I was saying the fact that I think that they believed, because of my confidence and my knowledge, that I could get it done for them. You know, when I said, sure, I can do it, they went right along with it. And we had a very positive experience on both sides of the transaction.
I think, Robert, I think that's because you were sure you could do it.
Well, that's
And
the
I
thing.
think,
It's the
yeah, you
confidence
know, exactly.
So I'm going to put in the chat here the attributes I think that draw people to us. And I'm going to ask if anybody wants to volunteer and maybe even just say, these are the top two and these are the bottom two. I want to get your feedback and have a discussion about what clients' perception and expectations are, so that we can basically highlight, you know, what our clients are looking for when they make a selection. For example, if we go into a listing opportunity, all we do is talk about market share, and the client doesn't care about market share. They want to have somebody that they can feel like they trust implicitly, and they don't care about anything else. I think many of us who've been in the business a long time have had clients like that they don't need anything other than knowing that, you know, Robert, Colleen, Angie's on the case. Would you agree, you know, Robert, Angie, and Colleen, that if a client trusts you, that it's so much easier to get the job done effectively?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
No
and
doubt.
you know, and Angie, Colleen, Robert, would you ever violate trust even to make more money?
Not at all.
No.
Not a
I
chance.
mean, we're career people, and sometimes, you know, we're so honest that it might cost us business, because that's just the way that we conduct our business, and that's why we're sustainable in this market. So in this chat box, we have expert status, and we have experts. I'm going to do it like expert status, experience, expert status, marketing. Negotiating skills.
Communication.
Sincerity.
I think, isn't sincerity part of communication skills, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's kind of communication
Well,
skills
I think,
and integrity, in my opinion.
yeah, and I think listening, having the ability to listen and find out exactly what your client's needs are.
So Colleen, here, so we have, and tell me if there's anything that you think is missing from this list, because I put a lot of thought into it. I had a bit of time on trains and public transportation to think about this with a clear head.
Trains and planes,
Expert
right?
status, yes. trains, planes, and gondolas. So expert status for experience, expert status in, marketing, expert status in knowledge. And I'm going to say marketing, also pricing. So marketing, pricing, knowledge, negotiation skills, communication skills, integrity, honesty, and then confidence. If you have that package, you're unstoppable. And
Absolutely.
if you have some part, go
I'd
ahead.
like to add something to that. Also, time allowed. For agents to have many, many listings, the seller may feel that they won't spend enough time, supporting and trying to sell their home, whereas an agent that has few listings will have more time to focus on selling their home as well.
So you're saying that if you have too much business, the seller might say you won't have time for me?
Something
and
along
if
those
you have-
lines. I mean,
Yep.
because they know that,
I love what he's saying,
Yeah.
especially if you have listings in the same community.
right.
They find it as a competition
Okay.
against one another.
Right. So
Exactly.
Fozzie, I'm gonna ask you this question, Fozzie. If you start with trust and
Yep.
integrity, does that issue go away?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And we all have people in our lives that we trust implicitly, and we have people in our lives that we are like, you better keep an eye on that person, right? And when we're in this business, people that we work with that, have not done us, dealt straight and fairly with us, that comes back to bite them in the, you know what? Because the next time they want to come up and do a transaction, you're like, I don't trust that agent. Even though their client might have an offer that seems better, I'm going to tell my client, I've had bad experiences with this agent. They do this, that, or the other thing.
You're
That's our
absolutely right.
integrity with our client.
Rob,
So, yep.
this is Angie again. That's why
Angie
a
again, how are you?
referral-based business is the best business you can have, because the trust is already there.
Agreed. And Angie, I'm gonna just ask you, if you meet somebody at an open house with your
Mhm.
years of experience and knowledge, can you build trust in a short period of time by having good communication skills?
Absolutely, of course.
So do you see how everything kind of interconnects here? Like if you've got repeat business, there's an implied trust. But if you can stand on your own 2 feet when you meet somebody brand new and have the communication skills to share with them that, you're going to treat them fairly and you have the knowledge and skills to help them get the outcome they want, it does make it a lot easier. So I think, Angie, the referred client kind of puts you one step closer to the closing process. But I don't think that is something that if you're a newer agent that you should be intimidated by. And to be honest, as an experienced agent, when you meet somebody and you have the experience, the confidence, it's easier to build trust. Anyway,
That's-
do you disagree? Do you disagree with any of that, having been successful for many years?
I don't disagree at all. I don't disagree at all.
So, and sometimes, and I've been doing this business a long time, and sometimes we never just sit there and look at all these pieces to the puzzle and say, where am I vulnerable? And how do I overcome where I might be vulnerable so that I can have, like, everything is a continuum. And if you have a weak link in the chain, it usually causes you to miss out on opportunities. And if you don't, Angie, believe that somebody listing their house with you is the absolute best decision they could ever make, how are they ever going to make that decision and have confidence they made the right decision? And when you don't violate trust and you have the communication skills and the integrity, price is less of an issue. Correct?
Correct.
I mean, how many times, and I appreciate your participation here, Andy, but how many times have you gone on a, let's say, a listing opportunity where you control the price and you've already secured the listing in your mind before you even discuss the price, and it's not even going to be an issue. Has that ever happened?
Ever? No, it happens, but I don't ever go in there expecting that they're going to list, because that would put me at a actually disadvantage in my mind, because you get cocky or whatever. So you still have to use not just the experience, but the fact that you have the skills, whatever that is, marketing, communication, etc. So I don't go in there thinking to myself, I'm going to get this listing, because you're dropping the ball. Like you won't do it completely like you would do it as a new person, like you're visiting with a new person. You follow what I'm saying?
I do. And, if you have, the package that we talked about, the continuum of these traits or skills, you will not, go in and say, hey, here's somebody that completely trusts me. I'm going to charge them 5% on the list side and put out 1.5 because I know I can sell it. That would be putting your own interest grossly ahead of the client's interest and the client's interest, because you might not get the right number of offers coming in, and you're just putting your own interest ahead of the client, which means that you're lacking integrity, ironically, because you've closed that circle. Like, they trust you and you took advantage of it. So all these pieces come together, and it really seems simple if you just focus on, am I an expert, and don't overthink it. If you're not an expert in Verona, like Robert said, you can call somebody in Verona, you can go on the internet, in 2 hours, you can become an expert. Marketing, okay, with our brand, we have a lot of people that are very talented doing electronic and social marketing. You have a tremendous amount of tools provided to you from Remax and our hub, that you can become an expert by investing a little bit of time in learning. Negotiation skills, I think most of us have enhanced, or I don't want to use the term perfected, but we've optimized our negotiation skills, that we can not feel vulnerable, that we're not going to help our clients get the best possible outcome when an offer comes in. And to highlight this point, I want to ask if anybody, I don't know, Michael Leslie, are you somewhere where you're able to talk for a sec?
Yeah, Rob, I'm here.
So Michael, do negotiation skills matter?
I think all the things that we're speaking about do matter, but I think, from my experience, I think one of the most important things is that you have to sell yourself. You have to make people be comfortable with you. And that's where they trust you. They know you're going to do the right thing by them. So I think selling yourself in a soft way, and just being honest and upfront with people, they're going to know you're knowledgeable. They're going to know the kind of person you are right from the start. So I think that's a very, very big part of it. We form relationships in this business, and that's how we get repeat business, and that's how we, have customers, have clients.
So Michael,
Hey,
let me just say,
what happened with your phone call yesterday at 1
Hold on.
o'clock?
let me just mute everybody, and then
Oh, you did?
unmute when you talk.
I was going to tell you not to do it, because I was going to have a conversation with.
All right, Michael, can you unmute yourself now?
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Okay, this is an important piece. Okay, and you said you want to sell yourself, and
With you,
how many
that
years
you know what
experience?
to do. Your mindset is already been.
How many years experience do you have, Mike? I muted everybody. You have to unmute yourself again.
Hold on.
Michael? Hey, Mike, can you unmute yourself one last
Okay.
time for me?
Okay.
Fantastic. It's great. So I just asked, how many years experience do you have? Now I might be having a bad connection on my end. Hello?
I can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Okay. So I know Michael has a lot of experience and a lot of skills, and Michael used the term "sell yourself," and I think you need to communicate who we are, and that communication, so to speak, sells you, right? Because if you're transparent about what you accomplish, what your history is, and who you are, the sale comes naturally. And if you think about trying to sell yourself, you may go into too much feature dumping. Oh, I've done this, I've done that. The I thing, which I think separates us or divides us from the outcome that we want and the relationship we want to build with our clients. And I don't know, Michael, can you hear me? Or can Robert Garver, you hear me? Thumbs up.
I hear you.
We hear
Okay,
you.
thanks. So I guess, if you take the time, right, to be prepared, to be the person that you want to have, you'd want to hire, comes down to the biggest challenge is communication skills and strategy that let them know that you're the right person for them to hire. And I also think, when we go about this whole process, and Colleen, you'll probably appreciate this well because you've worked with and coached so many people over your career, is there are clients that we should choose not to work with. And that might be a controversial statement, but our time,
it's absolutely an important statement because
right? Sometimes
go ahead.
I'll let you finish.
Oh, sometimes that client can be so negative and so destructive that it spoils you for your attitude for going and working with other people. It's absolutely the worst. I used to say to my agents, let's fire them. You can fire a client. If you see that it's too much of a negative, it's not working and there's nothing you can do to fix it. The relationship, they're just draining you. You need to say, I think that you might be better working with someone else. And we did that one time, and we had the lady came back and she stood in our lobby and she said, I am not going to leave till you take me back.
Colleen, I agree with what you just said. I just say one thing differently. I say to them, I might not be the right agent for you.
Perfect.
I think everybody should write that down. I might not be the right agent for you, because what that does, that also creates some self-doubt if they want to be like domineering and do a commercially reasonable practice to sell their house or to go through and buy a particular property. Two things. I want to come back to the question about how does negotiation skills impact the outcome. But I also want to say, I love this phrase because it's part of my DNA. It's like, Colleen, if we decide to work together, and then I ask a question, right? Because it's not like if you choose me, because a lot of us put out this, we're trying to be the NBC peacock and say, look at how pretty my feathers are. Will you please pick me? Instead of saying, if we decide to work together, this is what it would look like. That's really important, because otherwise, they have something in the back of their mind saying that Colleen might not even want to work with me. How is that possible? Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you, Colleen?
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the important words is we. Like you were saying before, I. I think in a presentation, it always should be we, because you're together as a team. You and
Right.
your
No,
client.
not if you choose me, if we decide to work together. And there's a huge distinction there. And the
Exactly.
second thing I want to mention is, and we're all going to, I believe, come to the same conclusion with this, but if a buyer's agent submits an offer on your seller's house, how much of the outcome is determined by the skill set of the agent versus the qualifications of the client? It's an interesting question, isn't it? How much of the outcome is determined by the skill set of the agent versus the qualifications of the buyer? Anybody want to chime in on that?
Yeah, it's I would say 80% of the outcome, because when you are negotiating on behalf of your client, that negotiation skill set has to, the other agent has to buy into that. They have to believe that it makes sense, and that when they pitch it to their client is going to fully understand it. So again, negotiating is definitely a skill set, and it has a lot to do with how it's articulated, and that's part of communication, and that makes up the skill set.
That's so true. And when you're talking with I always say to our agents, you have to think of the other agent also as a customer, because when you present yourself to them and when you're negotiating, if you know there's something that your person needs, you have to also sometimes give that other agent a good reason so they can go back to their client. Sometimes we don't think in terms of helping the other agent understand in a nice way. The more confidence you can build with the other agent, the person on the other side, the more confidence and the better negotiation skills you'll have. I always like the way Rob puts it. Go ahead, Rob. Tell them what you say about how to build that trust with that agent.
So
I put you on the spot.
So bring me to the you talking about the simple one when I call them on the phone?
Yes.
And I might, just say, hey, I appreciate you answering the phone. And I might just say something like, hey, if we are able to put this transaction together, I just want to let you know that, I'll be in communication and I'll do everything I need to do on my end. So let's just focus on if we can get this deal together. Is that the context that you were looking for? Or
yes,
did I fail that?
Yes, no, you did it perfectly. What you're telling them and what you're saying is, I'm here to work with you. I'm not an adversary. Let's do this together.
Right. So basically the true north to that, Colleen, is that, if, the deal makes sense for our clients, I hope that the two of us don't get in the way of a good transaction. Right. Is that like a kind of a cynical way of putting it?
Exactly.
And, you go back to communication skills, right? How many times do we get people into a transaction that are looking to derail it, right? And it's not, our Superman status or how many houses we sold. It's usually our communication skills that are able to overcome and get through the transaction. That's my experience.
Absolutely. It pretty much it boils down to communication all the way around. If somebody doesn't know you, like the other agent may not know you, those communication skills are your opportunity to give them the confidence that you're going to carry through with everything and that they can trust you. I've had, and I know you have also, I've had agents say to me, you know, they picked me and they told me they even had a better offer, but they trust me because they felt I was going to do everything that needed to be done to get this transaction completed successfully and happily for everyone.
Okay, I believe that Rob is gone.
Whoops.
think that he has
Okay,
seemed
Robert,
to
you
look-
can fill in.
You know, Colleen, I just did want to say that this is a great mindset. You know, in my 30 years, I wasn't taught this, that, you know, agents, we should treat them like they are a customer also, but you're absolutely right. I think that building on the rapport with the agent is really key to a successful transaction.
I agree.
All right. Sorry about
Well,
that.
well, Yeah, not
Unreliable
only that, but sorry, not only that, but when you build that rapport, what happens on their next listing when you put in an offer? You're going to be the
Right there,
person that they
you're
want to
building.
work with.
Yeah, exactly. You're building on that relationship that has a good foundation. Sure, absolutely.
And
that goes
relationships
to
with other agents, we've talked about this before, can be the deciding factor in which offer you select for your sellers. You know, an
So,
agent has a history of really getting to the closing table, and is an honest and straightforward agent like you are. I mean, you're going to be more likely to want to deal with an agent like that than somebody who sends in one document at a time with their offer.
Yep.
I agree,
So,
Robert.
So, Robert, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I've got sketchy internet here. I'm going to probably wrap this up myself a few minutes early, but I'm going to leave it in Colleen's hands to drive this home because there's nobody better to kind of finish the discussion. But I want to say that, did you ever try too hard at something and it winds up becoming the biggest obstacle to your success?
What was
I
that?
just
I'm
put that
sorry.
out there. I said, do you think that we could ever fail because we tried too hard and we have the wrong strategy? Is
No,
that
because
possible?
communicating, you know, it's the number one ingredient, I should say, you know, to your success. Because the more you communicate with other people, you know, the better results you're going to have. And at all level, you know, I mean, you have a doctor that calls you back, you have an attorney that calls you back, say, gee, this guy really is on top of it. So the realtor should do the same thing.
So Tony, I'm gonna just be vulnerable myself for a minute and say sometimes, you know, when I'm talking to somebody that I'd like to invite to become a family member, become part of the Remax Select Group, and I want it and I try too hard, what I do is I go into selling mode instead of communicating mode, right? I say, you know, we have this tool, we have that tool, we have this resource, we do this, we do that, and all I am is selling. And I think that's a turn off. And then when I say trying too hard, when we try too hard, I think we have a tendency to try to sell and pitch instead of listen and communicate and highlight the value proposition. And Colleen, I don't know if you've seen that in your years, but I know I've been a victim or I've been guilty of that myself.
Absolutely. What I see a lot is, I like to say, agents tripping over their own feet. And I hear them saying this, you know, we want to make an offer on this house, and I know that, you know, they're paying too much for it. And I always say, stop. That's not really your decision. They're paying too much for it. If there's competing people out there and they want this house, you have to think in terms of The moment they buy it, it's worth what they paid for it, because in this particular market, in the next moment, it's going to be worth more. And if they don't get the house because you told them they're paying too much, and it's the house of their dreams, are they really going to be happy with you? You have to ask them, you have to present the facts and see where they want to be, because you don't want to have them miss the opportunity to have the home of their dreams because you think it's $20,000 overpriced. And you want to come in with a lower price.
And Colleen, here's a great takeaway, and this is not a manipulative way of doing it, but if you have some of those people that are, you know, a little bit hard to read and you're hard to get them to where you want to be, here's two different scenarios. Okay, I'm talking to you, Colleen. The house is on the market for 500 and you believe that's going to go for 540, right?
Yeah,
you can go to them and say, hey, Colleen, you know, we need to come in with a strong offer, at least like 540, maybe 550, or you might say 560, hope they come in at 540. But when you're telling them what they want to do, their natural reaction is to push back, right? And you're
exactly.
at odds. If you go to them and say, Colleen, I'm not sure that you know, this is going to be the right property for you because I believe it's probably going to go for 540 or higher than that. Are you interested in making an offer? I believe the second approach, the person gonna be like, well, yeah, we want to make an offer. But if we're telling them that you need to be here, human nature is they're going to butt back against you. Would you agree that you've seen that in your world?
Absolutely.
So, you know, your communication skills are key, having the right strategy, you know, having access to, you know, phenomenal agents, you know, everybody that's participating in this call is making a great contribution. And sometimes, you know, we need to be vulnerable enough to say, you know what, maybe I can try a different approach the next time I'm in this particular situation. And, you know, if there's one part of the transaction where you start to talk about the eyes, or, you know, another big thing I've seen happen, Colleen, is people will say, you know, oh, it's a $3 million listing. You know, I've never done a $3 million listing. They get all flustered and then they don't behave the way they normally behave and they kind of self-sabotage their own transaction.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, fair.
Okay.
Well,
So
the other
Colleen,
thing that,
Colleen,
yeah, I'm sorry,
Tony, I'm going to, my airline is just calling us for boarding now. I don't want to be left behind in Milan. So I'm going to turn it over to the capable hands of Colleen. If you can just, you know, finish this up and end us at 10 o'clock, Colleen, I'd be tremendously grateful for you on that. All right.
Sure.
I think we lost Colleen.
I would be rushing if I had a flight on Milan too. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we lost Colleen now.
well, anyway, Tony, we were talking about the agents and building on that relationship, and you were talking about the communication point, which I think you were getting on a roll with, which was really some fire for the mastermind. You want to explain a little bit more?
Sure. What it is about communication is that also, as we know, and we have to learn a lot about it, and we have to control ourselves with it, is that selling is not telling. You know, when you tell people what to do, then, you know, they repel to you, they run away from you. And what it is that we need to do is that to ask more questions, that to ask a question that will lead to the end result, to what they want to do. So once you ask them questions, then it's them making the what do you call them? It's them making the idea that it comes from them and not from you. Because if it comes from you, unless they ask you about it, but otherwise you ask them, you know, what they like to do and how they want to approach, give them information about it, and then the decision is made on their side and makes them feel important. And certainly listening to what they're saying, not listening to give them an answer, but listening exactly what it is that they have a mind that they want to do, and that will create better results for both of the parties.
I want to share a recent experience. Greg over here, and so I sold a house a couple years ago. The husband passed away, and the wife comes back to me. She doesn't speak perfect English. Okay, so there's a language barrier there. You sit down, you speak with them. Yes, 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 I understand. Yes, I understand. Yes, I understand. So she picked the wrong attorney who blew up a Fannie Mae backed cash deal, cash to keys, because he's not a real estate attorney. He's an attorney. Of course, he's a know-it-all attorney who used to be a judge. So of course he knows best. And he blew up the deal. He blew it up, said, oh, I won't let her sign. I won't let her sign it. I'm like, did you even look at it? Because he knee-jerk reacted and said, I won't let her sign. I won't let her sign it. I was involved in making a law, but my case was used to make law in this exact type of scenario back in 1985. All right, so he just clearly doesn't know what he's doing. And then she turns around and starts telling him stories about how I didn't explain anything to her. I literally sat down with her for 3 hours with her sister, who speaks perfect English, and Tagalog, Philippine, and got the yeses across the board. What I'm getting at is, when you sit down and you have a meeting with any seller, specifically sellers, and you review the entire process and everything that's going on, have them sign every single page of your go-to-market strategy. Of everything you review, have them initial it at the bottom, confirming that they understand everything that you're discussing with them. It is something that I just learned in this recent transaction is a vital piece. I don't care how well they speak English. I don't care what language they speak. Get someone who can translate, but make sure that you have them initial every single topic that you discuss, commissions, pictures, all of it. And this will cover your butt when it comes time to like, oh, you didn't explain that to me. And you'd be like, well, like, we did. And you have documentation that everything was covered and discussed and reviewed, because that bit me in the butt and I no longer have the deal. It's very unfortunate. It was just a lot of very bad decisions on my seller's part that I did not guide her through well enough in order to maintain that deal. It is what it is, but CYA, have them sign everything you review. It's my piece of advice.
And just to add, one of those pieces should be the CMA that was used to determine a sale price. Because when, they come to you and say, hey, the house isn't selling, you gave me the wrong price. You want to be able to pull out that CMA and show them that, look, you reviewed this with me and this was what you decided to do.
Yep.
That's been very important for me to find out too.
Yeah, and make sure you have a plan of action that you discuss with them after that CMA, saying, listen, this is how we're going to price it. Should things just not go the right way and we have to revisit this pricing, this is what our plan is to revisit the pricing. Have them sign off on that. Have them sign off on everything. But your good go-to-market strategy should cover, A to Z of the entire process all the way up until closing. And have them sign every single piece of information that you share with them and review with them. This also brings accountability, and they will appreciate it. They will appreciate the thoroughness. They will appreciate, and then at that time, obviously, it may help them raise more questions or concerns they may have.
Yeah, you're making them part of the process.
Exactly, and culpable for everything that's happening as well.
Because they have short-term memory sometimes.
Isn't that the truth?
But yeah, that's that's a very good suggestion. And like Robert said on the CMA, in particular, because they always think that their price and what's in their mind is the correct one. Not necessarily is that always true. I think another thing that we forget to do is to incorporate, and signing is a good way to do that, but to incorporate that seller into our conversations, like Tony said, asking the right questions, asking them what they think and how they feel. That also helps you to, bond with them because they feel you're paying attention to them. Does anybody ever have the opportunity when they're talking with a client to feel that connection that you want them to have with you? Do you have that connection with them? And how would you describe that? Robert?
Colleen,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Anthony.
Colleen, I have over the years, I've learned to perfect this, and I think it has a lot to do with understanding that, we are creatures of vibration. And when we talk and we make that human to human connection, there's a bond that happens that's invisible, that builds on itself.
I agree with you completely. How would you give an example of that? Not to put you on the spot, but when you feel that connection.
What I've learned is, in the beginning when I was a real estate salesman, is that, they just taught me how to get my license. And so these skill sets that you're talking about, they come if you put, some effort into it. So basically you need to pick up a book on communication, and you'll learn that, we have these common bonds as humans that you can pull them from different bins, if you will. And then you can build on those bonds. So, if you have a common sport, a common game, maybe a club or, a family, for me, it's a family, I'm a family man. So, for me, it's all about family. So I build on that. That's what I do.
Very, very good suggestion. If you have pets and they have pets, something that links you to them other than just you want to sell their house, you have to connect with them on an emotional level. And I think that's an important thing that we overlook sometimes, that we want to have that connection where they feel not only trust you, but they're comfortable with you, so that what you say becomes more important to them.
Exactly. The important thing is that, people, especially with real estate agents, that invisible shield comes up. And once you're able to break through that invisible shield and you are a natural human being with another natural human being, then you can really get deep into conversation about exactly, what you can help them with in their real estate needs. And that's what it's all about. I didn't realize that in the beginning. In the beginning, it was all about the transaction. How can I get this sale? How can I get it? And really what it's about building the relationship with this other human being and serving their needs. And if you have a servant's heart, it all comes together. It all comes together.
That is so well put, Anthony. And I love the way you said being natural, showing yourself to them. Let's face it, especially when it's people that you don't know, you have a very short time to build that rapport when you enter their home, when you start talking to them. You want to build that first before you start your presentation, because then they'll be more receptive to what you have to say. Robert, what would you say about that?
Well, I think that following along with that's what's so important about the time that you spend walking through the house, asking the seller to show you their house, because you'll hear a lot about what made them want to buy the house back when they bought it. And you'll be able to use that information and comment along the way. And I think that's, one of the first steps in building a rapport with them. I think also, there's I just had this experience on Saturday of last week, last Saturday. I actually got a new client on Friday night. And they wanted to see these two townhouses in a development on Saturday, like at noon. And I said, of course, I'll set up the appointments. And then I got in my car and I drove out to these two units to look them over, see where they were in the development and everything. And so that when I picked up my new client, while we were driving to them, I was able to start a conversation with her about where in the development these townhouses were located, with relationship to surrounding townhomes and the pool and the tennis courts and all of that. And she just kind of looked at me and she said, how do you know that? And I said, well, after you told me you wanted to see them, I ran out here to take a look at them and be familiar with them so that I could show you ahead of time what the pluses were to each unit. And I just sort of saw this smile come over her face. She had worked with other agents that she hadn't been happy with. And now here she was, after 15 minutes with me, she's already got a smile on her face. And, I think it's because I showed her my commitment to her, after just a very brief conversation on the phone.
You showed her not only your commitment, but that you truly had an interest in servicing her. Right. And helping her. Helping her is a better word for that. Excuse servicing. But helping her out, yeah. Helping her. You built that instant confidence with her because she saw you were willing to go out of your way and do the extra work for her.
Right.
You acted as a professional, Robert. That's what it comes down to, really.
So Anthony,
that's the difference between you and the average real estate agent. And I would think that everybody here are mostly professionals. So this is great to hear. That's good.
There's just in getting back, Anthony, also to, something you had talked about earlier, knowing what to say, how to say it, or whatever. I just want to remind you, there's a great book that's available in paperback called Exactly What to Say. And it just gives you, funny responses, interesting responses, things that, if you're having trouble coming up with in your own mind how to respond to certain things, this is a book that's really worth it. I mean, you can buy it in paperback for like $7, and it's really a great a great tool to have.
It really is excellent. After you had first mentioned it, I immediately ordered it, and yeah, it's a terrific little book. Very easy to read, and well worth your time.
It's on my list.
Okay.
Actually, Robert, could you put it in the chat?
Yeah, that way we can see who is there. Yeah.
So if you'd put that in the chat for them.
Yep, I'm going to put it in right now.
Great, thank you. All right, it's 10 o'clock, guys. Thank you. For anybody else have anything else that they'd like to share before we sign off? Okay, I think we got a lot out of today's discussion. And I think the majority of it revolved around our communication skills, both to our clients and the other agents. Let's not forget how to communicate with the other agents. Quick little blurb, I don't know if anybody mentioned it. Don't raise your voice to another agent. Don't try to bully them into seeing your side of it. I've always been very effective, as if they're yelling, I make my voice lower so that the tone changes. So, even if they're difficult to work with, you can really make it to your advantage if you're nicer. It's very, very hard to be difficult with a person who's courteous and polite and tells them they understand what they're saying. And, you need to communicate with them in a way that builds trust with them as well as building trust with your client. And it will pay off tenfold. So anything else, anyone?
Nope. Have a good weekend.
Yep. Have a good weekend. Have a prosperous weekend and enjoy.